Hi, I'm Graham Elwood, and welcome to the Church of Batman. Today I want to talk about an article that was written by Ken Murakami, a CNHI Washington reporter. The title of the article is Pardon Sought for Veterans with PTSD. This came out January 5th of 2017. I think this is relevant because it's looking like the shooting at the Fort Lauderdale airport was by a vet, and 22 vets a day commit suicide, largely because of PTSD. When the United States invaded Iraq in 2003, Staff Sergeant Tyson Manker was among the Marines on the front lines. During the next 3.5 years, he would face gruesome scenes, including dismembered bodies, some of whom he'd killed. He cleaned up the brains and blood of a friend. He dreamt often of his death. One fateful night changed his life. While on leave in 29 Palms, California, he learned his parents, married for 34 years, were divorcing. He went out drinking with some other Marines, he said, and ended up smoking marijuana to self-medicate. He was discharged for it, his nearly 4-year service deemed less than honorable. Maker's case illustrates what veterans groups call a lack of recognition by the military of post-traumatic stress disorder as a trigger for minor infractions that have led to more than 125,000 post 9/11 veterans to receive less than honorable discharges. The Vietnam Veterans Association and other groups are asking President Barack Obama in his final days to lift these less than honorable stigma on thousands of veterans shown to suffer PTSD. They've asked the same of President-elect Donald Trump. In a letter to Obama, Vietnam Veterans of America President John Rowan noted that Presidents Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter granted pardons to those who avoided the draft during the Vietnam War. First of all, there's a difference between a dishonorable discharge and a less than honorable. Dishonorable discharge is like you committed a crime and you were kicked out. And then there's obviously honorable discharge. You served your country well. You get all of the benefits of that. A less than honorable discharge, you lose some of the benefits. You lose some of the VA benefits. You lose your GI Bill, which makes it problematic. So Kristen Goldsmith, the group's assistant director for policy and government relations, said it seems unlikely veterans will get similar help. Neither Obama nor Trump have responded. To be honest, it's not looking good, he said. I'm mentally prepared for our country not to help us again. Manker said it has also brought shame and feelings of betrayal. Manker was just 20 when he was part of the 3rd Battalion, 7th Marine Regiment that lobbed mortars into Iraq before the invasion. He remembers the coppery taste of blood after one firefight and the civilians killed during other encounters. Marines set up roadblocks, but sometimes they were around a curve where drivers did not see them until it was too late. Marines could open fire on those who didn't slow down, he said. He remembers one civilian who was shot 16 times. As the Marines rushed to the man to the hospital, he asked for his mother. And going through stuff like this, none of this was taken into account when he was discharged. He still has strange nightmares about killing his dog, or being Saddam Hussein's right-hand man, or of machine gun fire kicking up a trail of dirt coming toward them. He feels left out when other veterans are celebrated. So first, the country needs to talk about PTSD and understand it. Trump gave a speech to a veterans group in October, and he just said, he was very sort of cavalier. Just all these guys come home and they can't handle it and they commit suicide. And Paul Reichoff, who is in charge of the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, IAVA.org, which is a great vets organization, said, and many other veterans group, when Trump said that on the campaign trail in October, and other people say these things, like, there's a stigma about PTSD, and so why many in the military don't come forward is there's a stigma. First of all, you can lose benefits. So they went out and they smoked a little weed. I mean, that's a whole nother issue, why a guy smoking weed is like, or they get a DUI or something, and I'm not condoning that behavior, but they're self-medicating because PTSD can happen. It's not just soldiers or Marines having to go through this horrible stuff in war. It can happen from a car accident. It can happen if you've ever been mugged. It can happen if you were in an abusive relationship or an abusive home. It can happen from anything like that. And what happens is then the brain sort of plays over the event over and over and over, and you're sort of stuck in it. Or makes you quick to react, or a loud noise scares you, or something like that. And again, that can just happen from a car accident. But if you're in actual combat, then when you come back, so the stigma about it is then, many of the military don't want to come forward because then family members or people they work with think, oh, he or she's the loose, the short fuse. They're gonna snap and get a gun and kill everybody, or kill themselves, or go nuts. And so that fuels the not talking about it and not getting help and afraid to ask for help. And then this should be, and I understand what they're asking for a pardon. So if a guy just came back from severe combat and then has a personal thing at home and drinks and smokes a little weed, he's kicked out? Or not kicked out, but he get a less than honorable discharge and he loses his VA benefits? That doesn't seem right to me. That doesn't seem right to me at all. So here's another one. Former Army Ranger Keith Todd also discharged less than honorably and said he feels a strange stigma too. He has little hope for the future. Todd was discharged after being caught driving under the influence while on leave at Fort Stewart, Georgia. He too attributes the incident to PTSD from his service in Iraq. I've also talked to some service members because I did 7 comedy tours, 3 in Afghanistan, 3 in Iraq, and then Kuwait. And there were some guys in command who saw people using PTSD as an excuse, right? They were trying to exploit the system, and I got PTSD, so I need to go home early, or I get out of duty, or whatever. So then there's that. Anybody abuses the system, it makes it harder for people to actually come forward. Now Todd says he feels cast out. It's like your first love cheated on you. I was in love with the Army, he said. With no education benefits, he has worked at a Dunkin' Donuts, in a warehouse, and at a hip-hop clothing store, even though I know nothing about hip-hop, he says. He now pumps gas in Las Vegas, although he saved enough money to start school and become a mechanic. In December, Congress included language in a defense spending bill trying to help those like Manker and Todd. It codified a policy enacted by former Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel that directed military review boards to give liberal consideration to actions that might be attributed to a service member's PTSD, which is good. It's a step forward, because I know this is the thing that's tricky. It's the brain, and we know so little about it. The best neurologists in the world are still barely figuring it out. And PTSD we didn't even call it PTSD. I mean, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, it was just the guy was shell-shocked. He came back from the war, he was shell-shocked. And now as we're learning more about it, it can help us address it. And if there's any vets out there, or any families of vets out there, and you know someone are having a tough time, reach out. Go to your VA. If you don't have benefits anymore, contact the IAVA, or even the Disabled American Veterans. Those organizations can get you some help. And I'm sure there are probably therapists, hopefully in your area, that even be willing. And if you're like, I don't have health care, or I don't have money, there's people out there. Start asking for help if you can do that. But this, asking Congress, is important. And what we've been talking about in some of these other episodes of Church of Batman is what you can do. So when you hear about a law like this, or a lawmaker that's up, contact your local representative and say that this is important. Nevertheless, for Manker, our Naval Review Board on Tuesday denied his appeal for his less than honorable classification. It did not dispute his PTSD, he said, but concluded there was no evidence he smoked marijuana because of his trauma. I don't know how you could figure that out. How could you, how could you prove or disprove that? That's why this is, and at least the liberal consideration language that Congress is trying to put in that bill. Yeah, you need a stress release, and you need to calm your brain down from constantly thinking about this thing over and over and over and over, and then always being on alert. That's the other thing with PTSD, especially if you're trained in combat, you're always on alert, so then you're always doing this. You have to sit with your back against the wall when you're in a restaurant or something so you can see all the exits. You know, somebody walks up to you and you're always on alert. So smoking weed, would you like, I need to calm down because I can't always be on alert. Other problems remain that only a pardon could solve, says Michael Washini, a Yale law professor who oversees the university's Veterans Legal Clinic. Review boards can only handle discharges that occurred in the last 15 years, and some post 9/11 veterans are losing their ability to have their discharges upgraded. Well, that's, again, that needs to be extended. Manker, who worked his way through Western Michigan University Law School and now has a private practice near Springfield, Illinois, says it took him 5 years to complete a case and have his review heard. Most veterans in this situation, he said, don't have the wherewithal to do what I'm doing now. Among the worst aspects of the stigma, he said, is that it is not formally recognized as having fought in Iraq. Oof. I would like it when I die for my family to receive a folded flag, he said. So, this one breaks my heart. Having gone over there a bunch and talked to a lot of soldiers, and, you know, it's being diagnosed with a little PTSD myself. It's not fun. And I got it just from being on a helicopter that came under fire as a comedian. I wasn't even in combat. So it's something that it wasn't easy for me to, like, I didn't want to talk about it publicly because some people would act weird or treat me different or whatever. But there was a way to deal with it, and you got to reach out and get help. That's the key. And also, if, as I said, petition your lawmakers and pay attention to this bill. Pay attention for any veterans things, because Obama really he wasn't really paying attention to the VA, and it was pretty awful what was happening when he was the president. And every politician says, "Oh, I'm for the vets," but are they going to actually be for the vets? You know, or is it yet another bumper sticker we're going to put on? I support the troops. So whether or not you agree with the wars in Iraq or Afghanistan, even if you're 100% pacifist, you still should support the men and women that signed up to go over there, because we haven't had a draft since the 70s. So I thank Carrie Murakami for writing this. I'm Graham Elwood. Thanks for watching The Church of Batman. Like this video, click the subscribe button below. Follow me on Twitter at Graham Elwood, Instagram at Graham Elwood, and Facebook.com/Graham Elwood Comedy. All those things you like and follow are free ways to help support the show. The more likes and subscriptions we get, the more videos we can do. Thanks for watching.